As you work through this presentation, you will be building up your understanding of essay writing based on the William Shakespeare play called Much Ado About Nothing. The essay structure is actually quite basic. When you look at it, you've got to have an introduction, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion. Once you know what your topic is, you'll need to make sure that you know the author, William Shakespeare, the title, Much Ado About Nothing, and then think of 3 main points that can link in with the topic. Once you've worked that out, you'll start working on the body paragraphs. This PEEL, or J, stands for point, main point made, example, which is an example from the play, an explanation of that example, so you might want to explain a quote, and then the L is a link back to topic, or if you're thinking of the J, it is a judgment. Remember that the goal is always 5 paragraphs. Make sure that you're working towards that. The best way to start an introduction is to have a very good look at the question and decide what you need to repeat from the question. So in other words, we're looking for key words that will help us tell what the question is actually asking. So here we have 3 typical essay questions. I will help you with the first one, and what I'm doing is just looking for the key words. So for example, number 1 says describe an important idea dealt with in the text. Explain why this idea is important. Now our key words would be important idea, dealt with in the text, and explain why this is important. Now, what's interesting to note is that idea simply means theme. So what this question is asking you is describe an important theme and say why it is important. Of course, the text relates to the play that we studied, which is Much Ado About Nothing. So in your introduction, you would say something like, an important idea dealt with in Much Ado About Nothing is deception and eavesdropping. Now you see if you can do the same for questions 2 and 3. In the next few slides, I will be helping you with what you actually have to write in your essay. The topic we are looking at is describe a main character and explain how that character is dominant in your text. Now please note, it is a main character, so we're only talking about one person, and the word we need to repeat, which is our focus, is the word dominant. So here we have an example of an introduction. So let's look at what we need for the introduction. First off, we need the title, so it's the play Much Ado About Nothing. Then you need the author, by William Shakespeare. Then you need who the important character is, and in this case I've chosen to do Beatrice as the important character. This little bit is an extra bit that I added, which takes your work to the next level. So I've said she is important as the audience can learn valuable lessons from her and is someone that many female readers can connect to emotionally. So can you see that I've just added that? You don't have to have that section, it just raises your work. Then I've got to think of what my focus will be for 3 paragraphs. So I've said Beatrice is important as a character, and as she was 1, not the typical woman, because she spoke so much, she's quite unusual. And then point number 2, she shared an unconventional relationship with Benedict, which means it was unusual. It wasn't the typical love romance of the day. And my third main point is that she played a key role in showing the power of deception. Deception, pulling the wool over another character's eyes. So now remember that that would be paragraph 1 and then paragraph 2 would be that one, and then paragraph 3 would be that one. So this makes the body of your essay far easier for you to plan. Take some time to read through this introduction. It's just a variation of what I've done before. Now for the body paragraphs. We'll have to look at what structure is needed to build up these paragraphs, and I suggest you use the PEE structure, which simply means point, evidence, and explanation. Your points is 1, 2, or 3 from the previous slide. Your evidence would be a quote from the play, and your explanation would be an explanation of the quote. What did it mean? Once you've done that, you need to respond personally. So you could use these sentence starters. For example, from this the reader learns that Beatrice was unusual because women in Shakespeare's day were not expected to talk that much. That's just an example. Or you could say this indicates to the reader that women were very subservient. They were expected to follow what their fathers and husbands told them to do. Or you might start with, the reader finds this surprising. I'll leave you to think of a conclusion that you could put onto that sentence. The next 2 slides give you an example of a body paragraph. It is quite a long paragraph, and I don't expect you all to write such a long paragraph, but I've tried to give you as much information as possible. Please note that I am repeating those words from the question. Have a read through the next 2 slides and see if you can find that structure, the P, E, E, and then the J, which is the reader's judgment. Take some time to read this part of the paragraph as well. Please note that you do need to have your quotations. So I've got a couple of quotes there, and then this is where you're making that reader judgment. So now we have an introduction and the first body paragraph. What I'd like you to do now is write paragraph 2 and paragraph 3 of the body. Of course, you can use the main points that I have provided, but you'll need to find your own explanation. So you'll need to make sure that you can back up what the quote means, and then you need to do that judgment. Remember, I've given you sentence starters. For example, from this the reader learns that. And finally, the conclusion. The best way to describe a conclusion is that it is a reworking of your introduction. So go back to your introduction and have a look at what you had to say and find some other words to say exactly what you have said in the introduction. In the next slide, I'll give you an example of what a conclusion could look like. Take some time to read through this example of a conclusion. Remember, you want to repeat words from the topic, and you want those 3 points that we decided on right at the beginning of this presentation, you want to rework them in your conclusion. Now, if you are doing as I've asked and you are prepping this before the test, you're lucky, because here are the questions that you will be encountering in the test. So, the first one is describe an important character and explain why this character was important. You could, for this one, do Beatrice, you could do Benedict, you could do Hero, you could do Claudio, you might even want to think about doing Don John. Or, the second question, describe an important relationship a main character had and explain why this was important to the text. Here you might do how Beatrice and Benedict eventually fall in love, but they seem to be so anti each other at the beginning of the play. Or you might want to do Hero and Claudio and how they are in love and then out of love and then back in love again. It's entirely up to you. Please see me if you have any questions. So the date of your test is the 12th of March. So you've got plenty of time to prep for the test. Remember to bring pen and paper as you'll be writing this test. Good luck, and as I said, any questions, please see me.